Hello and welcome to Full Disclosure, a podcast project conceived chiefly, entirely, exclusively to let me spend more time with interesting people than I would ever get on the radio. Joe Pasquale, welcome.
Really interesting?
Yeah, well, you better be.
Well, yeah, that's a pressure.
We're not live.
That's pressure.
We'll do it in the edit. We'll fix it in the edit.
Yeah, please.
And I mean, it's quite an eventful life that you've led, isn't it? And we'll focus, as we usually do, on Full Disclosure, more on the bits before you became known than the bits after. But we should mention from the outset that you're celebrating 40 years in the business.
Yeah, scary. I never thought I'd last 40 years. I only did it for a laugh, really, if I'm honest. And I was busking it then, and I'm still busking it now 40 years later. I think the thing for me was I never took it too seriously. Because it was just a means to an end, really. When I first started, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I'm 63 this year, and I still don't know what I want to do, James. Only recently, and people might look at it as, he's having a midlife crisis. I don't see it as that. I don't see what I do as a midlife crisis, because I've just got my CBT on a motorbike.
Right.
And I've got my test in a couple of weeks' time, Mod 1, then Mod 2, and I learned to fly a few years, got a pilot's licence. And people go, you're having a midlife crisis. And I don't see it as that. I see it because, sadly, I lost my dad about 5 years ago. And he got worse and worse. As he got older, as we all do, we get steadily worse and worse physically. And in the end, he just sit there. I'd lost my mum 25 years ago now. So after she went, he used to sit there and watching, ITV4, watching Columbo, and that was it. He just let himself go completely. And I thought, I don't want to be that, and I want to keep pushing. I want to keep learning. I want to keep pushing myself physically and mentally as well. So I did a degree without university.
Did you finish it?
No, I've still got one more module to go.
Oh, so nearly there then.
Yeah, I've got 30 more in geology, geoscience.
Wow, well, that goes full circle, doesn't it? Because if we were to begin at the beginning, we'll begin a little bit before the period of your life when you wanted to be a geologist, and we're starting in Essex, in Stifford Clays, in 1961. Your dad, every interview I've read that you've ever given, your dad, two things shine out: the love that your family had for each other, and your dad's work ethic was pretty. Yeah,
it was. Yeah, very much so. He had 3 jobs. Because he lived through the war as a kid, as my mum did. He was born in 1934, and he was a staunch Catholic. You're Catholic, aren't you? Because I often listen to you on paper. Yeah, same here. Yeah, I'm definitely not a practicing Catholic, and because it always comes up in your podcast. Always, not all the time, but it often rears its head, as it were. And you
don't know what's formative and what isn't when it's you, do you?
No.
Sometimes it's the person that you're talking to who can pick, he thinks that because of that and this and that.
But your Catholicism always comes up.
Interesting.
It's very interesting to me. It is, because it's always haunts me in the back of my head. If that's the right word to use, maybe that's a bit too strong a word. But he was staunch Catholic. He was one of 14 brothers and sisters, and because his parents had a load of kids. Then they split up, had kids with other people. Then they got back together, had more kids. So my dad had loads of half-brothers and sisters.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a very strange family. And my dad had 2 brothers called Tony. That's what really made me laugh.
Really?
Yeah. 2 brothers called Tony. Which one's talking about, Dad? So anyway, that's another story, that is.
Did you? I mean, was it a big clan growing up?
No, I never knew that. I never knew that.
Side.
Didn't see the side at all.
No, I see.
No, my dad kept that side of the family quite.
Yes.
Quite quiet, really, from us. So not that quiet, but we never.
But he was a grafter.
Yeah. And then he was a staunch Catholic, so I went to Catholic school. My mum wasn't. She was Church of England, so she wasn't bothered what we did. But I remember going to Catholic school, a proper church. It was St Thomas of Canterbury in Grays in Essex. And I remember being 5, going to school and having to go to church, going to Mass on a Wednesday. Did you ever go to Mass?
Yeah.
Mass on a Wednesday and a Sunday. On a Sunday.
We have a midweek one.
Yeah, we had a Wednesday and a Sunday. But I remember having to go to confession every Sunday when I was 5 to confess my sins.
Young.
Oh, it's 5. 5's young to forget all my sins. I didn't really know what they were at the time. They're teaching you that. And I used to have to make stuff up that I'd say. So that way, I remember once, I don't know why I still remember this, but I do. I lied about throwing a stone at Vincent Garvey, and they gave me 3 Hail Marys. Right? Now, Vincent Garvey was a kid with specs at the school, and I didn't like him myself, but that's a valid excuse. I wouldn't normally want to throw a stone in, but I never did, but I said that I did. So that way, I had 3 Hail Marys on that Sunday, and the following week, I had a sin then, because I'd lied the previous week. So I lied last week. 3 Hail Marys, and now 5 years. So, okay, fair enough. And then they went to teach us, all the boys were to be priests and the girls were going to be nuns. And then I was interested in horror very, very early on. Yeah, in the early
Still
days.
are, aren't
Yeah, I love horror. I write horror books.
I know you do.
And I love horror. And what really interested me most about the Catholicism, I think really what got me into it, was the Holy Ghost. I always think it was a proper ghost, you know, and it never was really. And I was always disappointed when I found out it wasn't a proper ghost.
At my monastic boarding school.
Oh, you went to boarding school?
Yeah, there was an exorcist.
No. What, one of the priests were?
Yeah.
Was it really?
With the official monastery exorcist.
Oh my goodness, that's fantastic.
They never spoke to us about it, but I've established since I left that it was definitely true.
Oh,
one of them was actually charged with, you know, if someone thought that they had a form of demonic possession or something like that. They'd
you know, it depends. There's horses for courses.
Of course it is.
Say,
It all shifts around. We're jumping around. I'm going to keep. My challenge today, Joe Pasquale, is going to be to keep you on something that remotely resembles a narrative arc.
Oh, I can't, because I'm like a butterfly in my brain. I am a butterfly.
I know, but we'll be fine.
I'm so sorry.
No, don't be silly. So I think seminal moments would be when your dad bought a bungalow. You'd lived in a council house previously, but you have talked about there not being much spare cash around. There's two stories that jump out. One about getting your clothes from jumble sales, and another about coming home from your holiday a bit early. Yeah,
there's a third one which always reminds me, but my sister always reminds me of. The holiday one, we used to go to Clacton a lot and a caravan, and my dad would say, we've got to go, it's like Wednesday, we'd go on a Saturday, by Tuesday we've got to go home. Why is that traffic? It's because the terrible weather, it's going to rain, thunderstorms, and the caravan's leaking. And it wasn't our caravan, we rented. And then I only found out recently, my older sister told me that, and we used to talk about it a lot, about the holidays we used to go, and she said, you know why we came back early? She said, well, it's because of the weather. And she went, no, Dad always ran out of money. So no, I had no idea about that. And another one, which I do remember this as well, because he had 3 jobs, because he had 4 kids, and he was working in the margarine factory, and he was at a place called Thames Board Mills, which made paper, and I can't remember what the other one was now. I think he was working, he was working at a garage, like as a forecourt attendant, that sort of stuff. And when he was doing shift work, he'd come home, like he was doing 12 hours on, 12 off, that sort of stuff. He'd come home at 7, 8 o'clock in the evening. I mean, Mum would do him a proper tea. He'd have potatoes and vegetables and sausages. We'd have whatever we had, fish fingers and beans or something. And the 3 of us, because my younger brother wasn't born then, but I remember all 3 of us used to sit round him at his feet, and he used to give us some of the vegetables, and we'd be like, what's a vegetable? We didn't really know what they were. So, it was, I think, insane. I can't say it was tough, because it wasn't. We never saw it as tough. We just
it's all you know, isn't it?
It's all you know.
And you weren't hungry?
Never hungry, no. And
got bunions, though?
Terrible bunions because of the second-hand clothes. They used to call me second-hand Joe at school. I don't know why, but I admitted it to a school. I used to, be quite proud of the fact that my clothes were second-hand. And then it turns on you, go, and that's it. And then everybody at school, they'd pick on you then because you're second-hand Joe. And that's why I've got bunions, because my shoes never fitted me. And I remember once I had one pair of brand new shoes, and they were Wayfinders. I can't remember Wayfinders? They had a compass in the hill.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I don't know why you had a compass. What use is that ever going to be in Grays in Essex?
You don't know until you need it.
No, you don't, but I never did need it.
So primary school, where you discovered that you liked making people laugh, not necessarily by being funny as much as by being silly.
Yeah.
What's the difference?
Oh, I think there's a huge difference. When I work there, a lot of people say it's quite childish, and I don't think there's a huge distinction between childish and childlike.
Yes, very much so.
A childish thing to do is fart in someone's face. Whereas on stage, if I fart, I'll laugh to myself, I just farted, but I won't tell them that's childlike. There's a huge distinction in the two things.
There is, isn't there?
Yeah, there really is. People don't see that. So I think, I just like, as we grow up, we're told to grow up from little kids. We're told you're going to grow up, and you want to grow up. When you're 12, you want to grow up. I want to be 18, and when you want to be 21, then you want to be 26, and then once you're 30, you don't want to be 30. But we're told all our lives to grow up, and I never did. And I thought, no, I don't want to be grown up. Why do I want to be grown up?
You were conscious of thinking that as a young person.
Yeah, conscious. Yeah, I'm never going to grow up. But I have to do grown up things all the time. You have to deal with things on a daily basis that are grown up. But my outlook is very childlike, because I love watching kids, when they're that age and they're just in that transition of being fantastic to being horrible. That if they could stay like, and I want to try and stay in that transition period where you're just turning into an adult, but you still got that
clinging
fun.
On to something.
You still got that
naivety, relish in things going on around.
And when you still like the world and you like people still, because you do get a bit jaded with it. And I do like to think, no, I'm going to see the positive in everything. Try to.
I like that. And I'm surprised it kicked in at such an early age. But I guess it has something to do, perhaps, with your mum's accident when you were 7.
That's exactly what it was, yeah. And I made a conscious decision. I was only 7 then, so it wasn't. I don't think it was a conscious decision at that age, but it was something that I realised. They had a car accident, and my brother had just been born, so. She had my brother, who was a baby then there was me, who was 7. Then I've got an older sister who was 12, so she's 5 years older than me, and the other sister 10 years old, so she was 17, a 12-year-old, 7 and a baby, which is a handful of kids, basically, you know, and they're all wanting different things, so they're at different stages of life. You know, you've got my sister, 12-year-old, going through puberty, then the 17-year-old got boys, and then there's a baby as well, and the 7-year-old.
A whole lot, isn't it?
Yeah, and the 7-year-old is, and even I say so myself, I was quite a good kid, and I know you shouldn't say it, but and she.
I think you're allowed to now.
Oh yeah, I am allowed to. Yeah, but she used to say you're not supposed to have favourites, but I do, and it's you. All the time. I was definitely a favourite.
So she might be saying it to the other 3.
Oh, I know that. I do know that. I do know that. But I cling on to that.
That's really nice.
Yeah, it is.
And what happened was, after the accident, she developed depression and also epilepsy. And the depression was what you reacted to.
Yeah, more than anything. Yeah,
because you felt you could actually fix it or
I wanted
improve
to.
it.
Yeah, I wanted to try and improve it, and because they argued a lot, because for whatever reason, my parents, and parents do argue. That's a fact of life, and relationships we all argue, but it wasn't. There's no physical violence, nothing like that, but there was a lot of shouting going on, and I think it was mainly because 4 kids, no money really, and it's tough. But I didn't feel that it was a bad upbringing at all. But the thing that really affected me, as you just said, was her depression and her the lack of. You always used to lose the pills that kept the the fits at bay, and they'd drop all around the back of the fridge, and then she wouldn't take them for a week. I remember coming home from school and find her in the conservatory having a fit. So I was taught how to deal with that. Put something between a piece of wood and that sort of stand over so she didn't knock anything, all that sort of stuff. And as
traumatic for a child to see a parent being so vulnerable and needing.
Yeah, do you know the weirdest one is, and this could have happened yesterday, even though I'm at 63 next month, but I remember being 7, and it wasn't long after that I had to have my tonsils out, and Tilbury Hospital was not there anymore, and it was like something out of the Dark Ages. Tilbury Hospital, I do remember it. It was like 60 people sort of walled, and there's everybody, there was sort of sores and
everything. They were not sores.
They were sores. Oh yeah, it was terrible. Just to take your tonsils out with it was terrible. But I remember it was like something out of Crippin's Day. It was terrible. And Mum and Dad came to visit me. And she always had a seizure if something was affecting her. Like she was overstimulated. Put it that way. Yeah. That's what really did it. And
which is why strobe lights and things like that.
That's
can be
exactly it. Yeah.
Isn't it?
And she was worried about me and all that sort of stuff. And I remember sitting there, and I'd literally just come round, and they gave you a bowl of ice cream in those days. They wouldn't give you ice cream now, but in those days, tonsils out, ice cream would cool it down. I'm sitting there, and I was slightly out of it, and I just remember it vividly. It was like a horror film. And she had a seizure while she was there visiting me, and the nurse came along. I was only 7, and you can look at it objectively now as an adult, but I do remember the feeling of it now, and maybe I was crying and all that, and I remember it vividly. And so they kicked me out of the bed, and they put my mum in the bed and pulled the curtain round her, and of course she's kicking and screaming, and the arms are going everywhere, and the curtain's going everywhere, and it was like something out of a Hammer horror film, and I'm standing with a little bowl of ice cream, and my dad's inside there, and I'm on my own, and I remember it. And if you saw it in a film, I'm starting to cry well up there, not because of me, but if I saw it in a film, I'd burst into tears going, look at that little kid. Yeah. Look, poor little kid, look at him, and there was arms and legs.
Who's looking after him?
Yeah, and I didn't feel deserted, but I just remember the immense. I just didn't know where I was, what I was doing, what it was about, or anything like that. And I think after that episode, then I took it upon myself to try and make her laugh all the time. She was always in and out of psychiatric units and all that sort of. Not regularly, it's wrong to say regularly, but I do remember the times that she was in there.
What did you do to make her laugh?
Anything I could, anything, whatever it took. I remember I was about 13 or 14 once, and it was a real massive jaunt, this one. And I got better at it. I think that's what decided me I should be a comedian. She said you should be a comedian because...
Did she, from quite an early stage?
Yeah, but I think it was only because I made her laugh, right, Yes. Once you take it out
that's an audience of one.
Yeah,
it's the only audience you've got.
And she was on my side as well. But I remember once saying they've got a visitor coming on. She was in a bit of a state, And I said, we've got a visitor. She said, who is it? I said, I can't tell you who it is. I said, but then I go to the front door. I said, he's coming. And I pretended, I said, that Eamon Andrews is coming. And I did all the family. I did a This Is Your Life on her. I went out the room, came back as dad, and came with my sister, and I had all these clothes ready to do it all. And it was great, and I remember that vividly. And then as I got older and she got older, her bladder got weaker as well, and it was great. And sometimes I'd go in, she said, don't say nothing. Do not say nothing yet. Just wait. And she used to like Reader's Digest, and she has to put a Reader's Digest underneath her because she'd wet herself and it'd stain the settee. So, wait, don't say nothing. Do not start until I put this under.
That is quite significant given some of the stuff you've already said, because albeit that you like to play, have fun at school, your relationship with laughter is intrinsically a relationship with your young self. You are the child making mum laugh. That's probably why this desire not to grow up and also this childlikeness became baked in.
And I think that Jimmy Carr actually said it. I don't know if he said it on your podcast. See, Jimmy says that if you show me a comedian, I'll show you somebody in their life that was going through some sort of trauma for that.
Yes, that's right.
Jimmy says that a lot. And I think everybody's going through concern through some sort of stress in their life. So when you go to an audience and you put that on stage, I think you're given, I think once again it was Jim Carrey that said, the only thing the audience really want from you is to be free of concern for the amount of time they're watching you. And that's what I tried to do for Mum all those years ago.
Are you a student of comedy when you reference other comedians like that, or do you just stumble across them? No, I am.
As I've got older, I was really lucky. I had some great mentors when I first started.
We'll go on to the Ken Dodd story. That's one of my favourites.
Ken, really, Bob Moncas, and Des O'Connor were three mentors to me. So I think it's. Do you know what I find? What I really like is the psychology of the communication between a comic and an audience, right? And the audience don't realise. You must do it yourself. If you sit at home, do you ever watch videos of comics stand up sometimes on Netflix, whatever?
Yes, of course.
And you go, oh, that's funny, but you don't sit there going,
no, you're right.
You don't do that.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
You might go, oh, that's really funny. You might say to your wife, oh, that's funny, and you might have a little chuckle or whatever, but you don't respond the way you do in an audience. Yeah. Whereas when you're part of an audience in a live situation, you perform for the audience, but the audience don't realise that they're performing for you as well.
They're creating the energy.
They're creating. It only works when they're there, right? Yeah. And they're performing still, because you wouldn't laugh like that at home watching it on a video.
Sometimes you feel a titter go around the room, or you feel an intake of breath, and
that's exactly. And you actually physically see that if you get a really good light, you actually physically, it's like a sea of heads moving forward all in one go. And I think with Frank Skinner's one that you had Frank on, and he said sometimes you can feel it. He said it feel. I remember Frank said something like it was his blood turns to gold or something.
That was it. Yeah, it was beautiful image.
Yeah, but it is. It's a weird thing, the psychology between the communicate. I'm not even sure what it is you're communicating with each other.
But were you getting that just from your mum? Do you think? You're getting your own special version of that.
Yeah, I also knew that when I left the room, went to school, that whatever was going on in her mind was going to take over again. So I knew it was just a.
You're carrying quite a lot as a little boy, in a way.
Yeah, I suppose so. But I think. I've always been quite a deep thinker, though.
Yeah, clearly.
Yeah.
But you were a good student. I mean, you were, I presume, academically quite.
No.
Were you not?
No, terrible at school.
Oh,
terrible.
Okay.
No, I think I got 3.
Because you couldn't concentrate?
No, didn't concentrate, and just wanted to play. And then I got run over when I was 13.
I think this is why I thought you'd been academically quite impressive, because I got the impression that missing all your exams was a terrible infliction.
Oh, it was.
But I mean, you weren't robbed of a glittering academic future.
No, I was never going to do that.
But you did want to be a geologist by this point. Where did that come from?
That came from my dad. I was very close to Dad. He wasn't demonstrative in showing affection physically.
Right.
He wasn't a kiss or a cuddle or anything like that, but he always told me he loved me, so I knew that. And after my mum went, I keep jumping from one thing to another, but I put that physical relationship onto him, and I kissed him, cuddled him after Mum went, and then he opened up to that then. But it was only after Mum went. If he'd gone before Mum, I wouldn't have never had that relationship with him. Anyway, so he used to take me down. My mum would go down the pub, and he'd go down the pub in Grays, on Grays Beach. We call it a beach. There's no beach. It was just mud. And in those days, it was amazing. You couldn't do that now. He would go in the pub for however long, hours. Right? He'd go say to me, "You get on the beach there, and you get on the mud and play on the mud." And that's what I'd do. And I'd do beach combing. I'd find all these clay pipes and bits of really weird rock and God knows what, and old cannonballs, whatever I found. And it was fantastic. I loved it, and that's where my love. But now you couldn't take a kid down. I'm going to go to the pub for 4 hours.
You go play in the mud.
You go and play in the mud on the beach as the tide comes in for the Thames. Don't worry about me. As long as you come in when it's dark, it'll be fine.
But was a genuine enthusiasm then? You went a bit further with the geology. You looked at books and stuff like that.
Yeah, and then I started to do the coursework at school, geography and geology, and then I got run over, and then you had to take your options then for what courses you wanted to do for take you into the adult life.
Yes.
And so I missed a year of school.
And there was no infrastructure in place to sort of rescue you or catch you or redirect you?
No, not at all, because it was just then, you put him in the art lessons, give him some crayons to play with, and that was about it for the next few years, because I did miss a year.
And you're out at school at 15,
yeah.
I think.
16 it was, yeah.
15, 16. If I'd met you then and said, what do you want to do when you grow up? What would you have said? Apart from saying, I don't want to grow up. That's not, you're not allowed to say.
That would have been it. I had no idea.
Really? None at all?
None whatsoever. Got my first job, I was worked for the government. I was Department of Transport and Environment, Dangerous Goods Branch.
What was that?
I was a civil servant, clerical assistant, and now you could work up to I can't remember what the next level up was, but it was in Marsham Street. You know, it was quite. I had to sign all these forms. You know, the
official secret.
Yeah, official secret. All that. And all I was doing was filing paper, photocopying, making the tea. But it was all a lot of Hazchem stuff for all the the lorries around Europe taking all the hazardous chemicals about. So it was quite important, all that sort of gear. But it's so boring. Oh my God! No, and everybody's so adult, and it was the government, you know. Oh no! And I was getting, this is how much money, 15 quid a week, right? £5 on the train. That's how much it cost to get. Yeah. I'm down to London. £5 on the train. £5 to my mum and £5 to me. And that was it. And I thought I was rich in that £5 a week, you know.
So you're beginning to develop ideas of what you don't want to do.
Yeah.
But not much idea of what you do want to do. So you try out quite a few.
A lot of jobs. I got. My dad got me in after that. Well, I can't do this, Dad. He got me into the margarine factory where he works, making flora. Do you remember the margarine flora?
Yeah, of course I do.
I was in the Royal Department's raw materials department, and it was just pumping all the oil, all the terrible oil from these ships into these huge tanks. And then once the tanks had been used, all the oil had been used, you had this huge sediment there, about 3 foot sediment, and then you'd have to get in. They'd undo these big manholes on the side of these big huge tanks. You get in, you literally shovel out all this crap that had been built up, but you'd have to wear gas masks and God knows, because it was all quite poisonous, a lot of stuff to your lungs. So I did that for about a year, and then I thought, I can't do this till I'm 65. My dad had, I can't do it, Dad. He went, no, it's okay, don't worry. And then I went to Ford's at Dagenham, spot welding Mark IV Cortinas, and then I lasted 4 weeks on that. I did 2 weeks a days, right, which is fun. I could do the days. 2 weeks a night was a killer. Couldn't do it. And then I phoned my dad, sorry, can I come back to the margarine factory? And because he was quite high up there at that point, he was a supervisor there, he got me back in there. Went, he's back again. And I lasted another year there, and I thought, I can't do this. Then I went labouring on building sites. Then one of my favourite jobs was Smithfield's Meat Market. Right. Which was fantastic, because it was, number one, you started at 5 in the morning, you was done by half 11, 12 o'clock. And I used to have a little Yamaha FS1E moped. Do you remember them? That you call them fizzies, they used to call them. And at the end of the week, and I went from earning 50 quid at the margarine factory to earning like 180 quid.
Crikey.
Physical
work, though.
Physical work, yeah. Well, I was called what was called, you couldn't use these words now, I was what's called a humper.
Yes.
And you literally hump the meat from these refrigerated lorries round to a boning room where these blokes would bone the meat, and that's what they called it. But all these phrases now, completely different meanings.
Well, yeah, but I mean, they probably had different meanings then. I don't know what else you'd call a boner, would you?
No,
what else could you call it if that's what they were doing?
That's what they were doing, but the boner had a completely different meaning now. But I remember on the end of the week, you'd also get the 180 quid, but you'd also get a chicken, totally unplucked, and a big lump of beef. Okay. And my mum used to love it, because I'd drive home, and I remember it was quite balanced. But I remember somebody's on my handlebars of my moped, and I remember somebody knocked the chicken off, and so I was so unbalanced on the beef on one side, and everybody's bibbing me up down the A13. And when I got home, I saw they'd been bibbing me up because the chicken had bounced out and got stuck on the mudguard of the moped. It looked like I'd been chased by a roadrunner down the A13. And my mum I still got to finish this way, and half of it was cooked on the exhaust pipe. She just cut that half off. She went, "Oh, you'd have that for your tea with some chips," and it just smelt of horrible oil in WD-40. It was horrible.
Were you would you entertain your colleagues? Would you?
Yes, I did, but there was it was. I felt quite because they were all quite physically big.
Yes, clearly.
And I wasn't. I was very skinny, 16, 17-year-old at that point.
Yeah. How did you end up there then? What was the journey to Smithfield?
What you mean?
I saw it in the paper.
Oh, no, because I was working on the building site, and it was like every job I got, it was like somebody else said, I know someone's got this.
Try this.
Yeah, do you want to try this?
And you were just hoping to finally feel like you'd found something you wanted to do for a long time.
No, I hadn't, but by that point as well, I was married. We missed that bit out. I got married when I was just over 17 then.
Right.
And so I had to get a job that paid more money. That's what the driving force.
So you're constantly looking for more scratch.
That's exactly it, yeah.
Okay.
And we had and by the time I was 19, I had 3 kids by the time I was 19.
Didn't hang around.
No, so I had to really try and find some money then.
So we were talking about whether or not you used to make your colleagues laugh, but you didn't feel like you...
No, they were physically quite intimidating as well, because I was very skinny. And those were all right, but I took a back seat on that at that point because I didn't feel comfortable in that whole situation. It was great for earning money and getting meat and that sort of stuff, but for my personality, it wasn't any good.
Yeah. You don't yet sound like a show-off.
No, I don't think. Even now, I'm an introvert trying to be an extrovert.
Yeah,
that's what I am really.
It's not unknown in your industry, is it, to have that dichotomy?
No, I don't think it is. I think now, if I'm in a group of comics or a big group of people, I'm the one sitting down quietly, unless somebody pulls it. Come, Joe, but I hate performing for that. I like performing as I'm doing it, but I don't like being put on show, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, of course it makes sense, because we're back to energy again, aren't we? We're back to the energy in the room.
Yeah.
And what it feels like. And if you're with a bunch of people around the table, it's a very different... Some people love that.
Yeah.
So, the funniest bloke at work might be absolutely diabolical if you ever pushed him onto a stage. It's alchemy. Strange. It's very hard to pin down. So then I think the point at which things begin to change is when, and I presume, was this just again with 3 little ones at home, someone said, you can earn good money in a holiday camp, so you thought, I'll go and have a go in a holiday camp? Yeah,
that was basically it, yes. And then at the time I was back at the margarine factory.
Right. There's a recurring theme in your life.
Yeah, well, what was great was my dad always had the bounce back for me. He had that safety net of... I was never at work for more than a week.
Did he worry about you? Did he think, flipping heck, Joe, you should have settled in something by now? Or was he?
No, I don't think so. No,
nice, though.
I never felt pressure from my parents. That's all about finding a job. No, I think
because he'd seen that you wanted to work.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So it's not as if you were lazy.
No, not in the slightest.
I'm not enjoying this, or this one isn't working for me. I need to have another go at something else. So you're back in the margarine.
Yeah, and I was always very positive. I wasn't one of these. I was never down about it. I wasn't like, okay, what have I got to do here? How can I suss this out?
Yeah. Okay.
And that's always been my way. Is right. Whatever adversity there's been, it's not adversity. What do I have to do to get around this?
Yeah.
And I try and do that still to this day. And so then I got a job at the holiday camp in Lowestoft, and that was when I split up, also from my first wife as well, because we'd been away for so long.
Yes.
And the pressure, we were very young, we got married, and the kids, and financially, and it just wasn't working anyway. And then, of course, once I've gone away, then that was it. That was it. Then it was a nail in the coffin for it. Then, and then I got a job called in bingo, refereeing wrestling.
So this is the first time you've been behind a microphone in front of an audience.
Yeah.
Did you feel that? Did you think, aye, this is all right? Or was it just another job at this point?
No, I've actually skipped over one little bit from the margarine factory, so I'll go back on this then. So what I used to get the stage newspaper when I was working at the margarine factory. It might be a job for an actor there, this sort of stuff. And I remember there was a job that came up at the school dinners, whatever it was called. It was like an adult gentleman's club.
Yeah.
And they wanted a compere. And it was, do you remember when the Iranian embassy was done, the taken over by hostages and all of that? And it was round the corner from that. And I remember being there when this happened.
Was it called School Rules? Or was it called
I think it's called School Dinners.
And it would involve, you're a bit older than me, but it would involve women dressed in very St. Trinian
That's exactly it. And then they wanted a compere.
Oh,
right?
okay.
And I only lasted a week, because it wasn't for me.
Because you didn't... You didn't produce the goods.
No, I didn't produce the goods. I didn't really know what I was doing. I looked like, and also because.
So this is it. You just turn up from the margarine factory and say, "I'll have a go. I'll do."
Yeah, well, I actually told them.
There's a fearlessness here, isn't there?
Oh yes, I am fearless anyway. Even there,
yeah.
Felt completely fearless. Yeah, because what's the worst that could happen? They found crap. That's it. Go home. I'll go back to the margarine factory. That was always there. But I didn't even give up the job to the margarine factory. I still kept that on while I did this for a week.
So you go in the evenings.
Yeah, and I had to wear these chaps with your bum hanging out as well. And so I thought, this isn't really. And people would smack it as you went past. Oh no! And then the Iranian embassy, the terrorists came, and my mum said, "I don't even know I was married, but they said, I don't want you going up there. I don't want you going up to that London anymore." So I went,
too dangerous.
Too dangerous, and you'll get me bum smacked every day. So I gave that up, and then I went to, strangely enough, my first job on stage was in Kidderminster.
No.
Well, yeah, where you come from.
Seriously?
Yeah.
I did not know this.
No, but this one is quite hidden, right?
Yeah.
And
How did that happen then?
I applied for a job as a comedian compere in the stage newspaper for a showcase this agent was having in Kidderminster. So they went, yeah, you can come and do it. Yeah, come do it. And so I went and did it. All I had was one joke, really, which was I put a baby's potty on my head and I put a baby's bib on and I sang, "It's my potty," and I cried if I want to. I had a pair of glasses, water squirted out, and that was it, right? Anyway, I died on my arse.
Did you?
Oh, yeah, completely.
Not even that joke went
No,
there,
they booed me off anyway. Yeah, they booed me off.
Can I apologise on behalf of Kidderminster?
No, it wasn't. It had nothing to do with it. It was me. I know it was all me. It was all on my shoulders. Anyway, but they said to me, "Oh, you're not very good, are you, dear?" I remember the agent, and Billy George, her name was. She was a fantastic old lady. And she, I didn't hear anything from them. About a year later, they phoned me up and said, "We run a pento every year and we haven't got a wishy-washy, and would you like to do it?" So I went, "Oh my God, yeah, of course," but it meant giving up the job.
Oh.
So I said to my wife that I said, "I've got to get a job, it's show business, got to do it."
Yeah.
And that was it. So I did this pantomime, it was horrendously awful. And then after that I got a job.
In Kiddie or
No, it was touring. It was touring everywhere.
Yeah.
And it was horrendous.
Why was it horrendous? And why haven't you been put off yet?
No, I know, I should have been put off.
Getting your bum slapped.
No, I know, the worst panto.
And
people were throwing sweets. I remember I got a black eye when somebody threw a humbug at me and hit me right in the eye. But yeah, it was terrible. But it was show business.
And that was it still had a lure. It still had a you just couldn't tell anybody why, but you knew that you wanted more.
However bad it was better than carrying a dead cow or making margarine or spot welding Mark IV Cortinas or photocopying stuff or whatever it was.
There's quite a lot of things that might have been better than all of that.
No, nothing was better than that. So then what happened was the agent said, so this agent I did the pento for said to me, "Look, have you got an act?" So I said, "No, you know I haven't got an act." He said, "Look, we've just bought a house. What are you doing up to rent out and sell on? And I see from your CV that and I used to put on my CV that I was a plasterer, even though I'd only done a year of labouring, right?" So we've bought a house that needs plastering. Would you plaster it? If you plaster our house, I'll write you an act.
Okay.
And then you can go into we'll get you some work.
Yeah.
So great. So I wasn't a plasterer at all. I'd knocked up the gear for a year, and that's all I'd done. And so it would take a plasterer a week to plaster the house. Took me 6 weeks, right? And it looked like Crippen had been burying bodies behind it all, right? And they came round and they put a broom. The ceiling was sagging. And it all collapsed on them. And then they sent me to this, "Look, we can't get you any work." And she wrote me an act as well. I forgot to say that. She wrote me an act, which I used to practice in her living room with a book on my head, and she invited all her family round. Then she put me into a little showcase, and I came second in a little talent competition. And then she got me a job at this holiday camp in Lowestoft, and that's where it really began then.
Right. I mean, where to even begin picking that apart? It's a weird combination of fearlessness, determination, dumb luck, and stubbornness.
Yeah, I suppose so,
Is there some stubbornness there?
Yeah, a lot of stubbornness.
I'm
not giving up.
How many times would you have needed to be told?
Oh, yeah. I had the worst heckle in the world, right? I remember somebody throwing crutches at me, right? He shouted something in Welsh, threw his crutches at me, and he slipped to the floor, right? I thought, oh, God. So, I picked up the crutches, and I got off, and his mate came around the back, and he said, "Can I have my friend's crutches?" I said, "Yeah." "What did he say?" He said, "Oh, you don't want to know." I said, "Yeah, I do." He said, "I'd rather fall over than listen to this shit." And he actually threw his crutches and fell over. But I never gave up.
So we're in Lowestoft at the holiday camp, and finally things begin to slot into place, or you begin to find a routine, a rhythm? A
rhythm is
maybe.
the right word. Yeah, rhythm that I felt comfortable on a microphone in front of an audience, talking to them, and not actually doing an act. The only time I had to do an act was if a cabaret never turned up. They said, "Can you go and do 10 minutes?" Somebody's broken down, and I have to go and do 10 minutes. And they were a very friendly audience though, because they'd been with me all week, calling the bingo, and so
they like you. They like you. Energy. You've got a
relationship with them as well. But you'd have to do the everything. You'd literally have to do the swimming gala, and also I was a swimming guard as well, like a lifeguard.
Yeah.
I'm not a good swimmer at all, but you only had to be taller than 3'6" because that was how deep it was. As long as you didn't drown in 3'6" water, you were taller. You could be fine.
And would you be thinking in those moments that there's some material here? Had you developed a magpie kind of?
And this
will be a good story to tell.
Yeah, and also,
but you've been doing that since your mum got poorly. Presumably, mum would like this, so you've got the same impulse kicking in.
That's exactly it. And also, I still had that little bit of an act that Billy had given Billy George, the agent, had given me. So that was what I had really. Yeah.
And so you're doing the swimming gala, the wrestling, the bingo.
Yeah, whisk drive, tea dance.
All of it.
Everything.
I mean, proper high type territory.
The Knobbly Knees talent competition, everything that needed to be done was doing.
And does the ambition kick in at any point? Is there? Not at all? I just want to get to the next paycheck.
Next paycheck. But what I wanted to do was enjoy life, really. I don't mean party. What I mean is enjoy being alive, enjoy talking to people, enjoy making people laugh. That's what it was.
And you were, finally.
Yeah.
And you were 26.
26.
When you did New Faces. You went to New Faces.
Yeah.
On a kind of bet, because even...
Yeah.
You didn't have much of an act.
Didn't have... No, all I had was that, really.
But you had faith in what happened when you were on stage.
But
you knew that stick me in front of a bunch of people and I might be all right.
Yeah, but even then I thought, what's the worst that can happen here? They go, you're crap, you go back. At the end of the day, I could always go back to the margarine factory.
Always got the margarine factory.
Always had that if I needed
like
to.
Avalon.
Yeah, it was exactly what it was. Yeah, but I didn't need to.
So you turn up for this audition.
I turned up for the audition for New Faces, and it was just like Britain's Got Talent, but there was no audience there, because they show the auditions, and there was 3 people. It was Richard Harris, who incidentally is still the exec producer on Britain's Got Talent as well, after all those many years. And on the panel was Richard, and then there was a producer and a casting agent, 3 people. And I just had one joke that I was going to do, and it was I had my potty, I had the eyes.
Same.
I had that, and I had.
You get great faith in this joke.
Oh yeah, I loved it. But I felt comfortable with it.
Yeah, fair enough.
And then I also had a little toy guitar out of a big guitar case, and I was going to sing a Spanish folk song called "A Moose a Doogie," and I go "A Moose is a Doogie" in the winter. That was it. But I never got to it because the bloke on the piano started playing with flamenco. He said, "Do you want any dots?" I mean, I didn't know what dots were. He went to music, so if you think of anything, and I said a Spanish folk song, and he started playing flamenco, and I just stood there and looked at him. And then he stopped me and went, "Is everything all right?" I went, "Yeah." I said, "You've already got a job. I'm the one auditioning." And I broke the guitar over my knee. I went, "I'm not doing this." I had a fake strop. Yeah. And then they kept laughing. And then they said to me, "Who's your manager?" Right? I went, "Mr. Lee." This is actually happened. So, Mr. Lee, who does he look after? I went, "He looks after everyone." And they went, "What do you mean everyone?" I said, "Well, everybody there." I said, "Everybody where?" I said, "Everybody at the camp." I said, "What camp?" I said, "Well, the holiday camp." I said, "What holiday camp?" I said, "Well, in Lowestoft." I said, "What one in Lowestoft? Wilderness." "Well, what do you do there?" I said, "Well, I call the bingo." And then the more this conversation got, the more they were laughing. It was like it was a routine, but it wasn't. I was just telling them the truth. And then when they said the manager, they thought I was in show business. I had an act and I had a manager. But he was the general manager, Mr. Lee. And so that whole conversation, they went, "We want you to the show." I said, "But I haven't got an act." I said, "Just do what you did there. You've got 15-piece orchestra to work with." And I went, "All right, then fair enough. I had nothing to lose."
But you knew you were being funny when you
I
were
knew
doing these
exchanges. It wasn't like being a div about it. I knew I was, but I also knew it was working for me.
Yeah.
So I went with it. And so then I get to the show, and I had this little bit of an act to do, and I did it in the afternoon. And they had the panel, which was Ken Dodd.
He was a judge.
I think it was Ken Dodd, Nina Mishkelf, and I think it was Laurie Mansfield, my big agent.
Yeah.
They was on the panel, and you did the rehearsal, and then in between that and the show, you got makeup, and Ken came in and sat next to me, and he said, "Hello, son." I was, "Oh my God, it's Ken Dodd." He said, "Can I give you a bit of advice?" So I said, "Yeah." And he pulled out a bit of paper. He'd written out my whole act word for word. And he went, when you do that, take that there, move that to the end there, put that in the middle there. When you get the rabbit out there, put it down your trousers, shake your leg, it'll come out there, get an extra laugh there. Do that there, don't do that one, that's a terrible joke, this is a good one, put that in there instead. If you do that tonight, son, you'll win. And I did it, and I won. So that was it, really. And I didn't know what I was doing. I went,
that is such a moment, isn't it?
Yeah.
And because we haven't talked about heroes, you talked earlier about later having mentors. Did you watch other comics? Did you watch? Because Ken Dodd, for people who are a bit younger than me, was so iconic, wasn't he? He was, so extraordinary.
And I was really lucky. I got to work with him later on as well, and he always took me under his wing again.
Very generous.
He was lovely. Yeah, not financially, but he wasn't financially generous to anyone, Ken. But no, he was wonderful. I loved him. He was a great bloke.
So does something shift inside you at this point? I mean, it's on telly, right? It's
on telly. It was live on telly. Yeah.
You and you've won.
That was the heat.
You got through your heat as the winner, and you can't now still be thinking. Something must have kicked in. Like, I want more of this.
Oh yeah, it did. Yeah,
right.
It did. Oh yeah, absolutely. And I thought, I don't think I'll have to go back to Margarine Factory.
There we
for a
go.
while.
Yeah, that's the
big,
big,
that was it.
test.
And my mum, dad, my mum, dad were very proud of me in those days as well. And so my mum built this little shrine in the conservatory, and anybody that came round, a postman come in and look at when there was anything in the paper, an article, Gary Bushwater, she'd put it on the window, and oh my God, Mum, please take it down.
So you win your heat, and then you go to the final. You come second in the final.
Yeah.
Who won it that year?
Jimmy Tamley, a ventriloquist.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you have crossed the Rubicon, I think.
Yeah, that's exactly. I love that phrase.
It's a great phrase.
It's a great phrase. But yeah, I did, and then I struggled for the next 5 years, and because at that point, I'd been working to a friendly audience.
Yeah.
For people that knew who I was every week, every day, and all that sort of stuff. And then you get out in the wide world, and people are going to pay you money to go and entertain them for 45 minutes. And I remember the first job after New Faces, bear in mind, all I had was that 5 minutes.
Right.
Then it's still the 5 minutes that Billy George had done for me, really, all those years ago. I get booked to support Grace Kennedy, a big singer. I was still going, Grace, in actual fact, at a place called Blazes at Windsor, when all the big nightclubs were still going. And I had to do 45 minutes. I only had 5 minutes. And I went out and did the 5 minutes. I went, yeah, it's great, but where's the other 40 minutes? That's all I got. And at that point then, I'd got an agent who used to be a magician.
Right.
And he said, he came and he went, right here. And he packed up being a magician and became an agent. And he gave me his suitcase of props. He went, go and do that. And it was a load of old magic crap. And I went and did that. And as that week went on, I built up more and more in that week. And by the end of the week, I had about half hour stuff of crap magic.
So copyright.
Yeah.
So there's there's almost a sort of a sense of threads coming together now, because the fearlessness, right, I'm going to have to go out and do it.
Yeah.
But also, I'm going to work my way through it. I'm going to find the solution to this problem that I found myself in.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the love of the crowd,
Yep.
really feeling the room and wanting to be in front of it. And so, in a way, whatever you'd been given, whether you'd been given a case of crap magic tricks or whether you'd been given a trombone or whether you would have found
some way to make it work. I'm genuinely, I died on my ass for about 5 years.
And what's that like, though? I mean, you smell, you can sense in the room the ennui and the
oh yeah. And
on your press.
And they paid you off. You know what? After being on for 10 minutes ago, that's enough, son. In the club, that's enough, son. And here's after.
Not to be rude, but how did that last for 5 years? How would that not have been called time on after 6 months?
Well, it didn't happen every night, but it happened regularly.
So what happened on a good night?
Oh, they really laughed on a good night, but it wasn't consistent, and then you learn.
But it was often enough for people for you to stay in the game.
It was often enough to go well, right? And also I was earning money still. Even though I got paid off, I still got a certain amount of money.
Yeah.
But I was learning. I think you only learn from not going well. You don't learn.
Yeah, but this is the thing that everybody outside finds people come out in hives about giving a best man speech, and so then that's the friendliest audience anyone will ever have. Really.
Well, I've had people lobbing cans at me. This is a great story, this one. I went to Belize with Bradley Walsh and Ray Allen and Lil Charles. Remember Ray and Lil Charles? Had the ventriloquist. And he said, you silly ass. So we did a lot of troop stuff. Went to Iraq, went to Bosnia, went to Belize, all Falklands 3 times, Ascension Islands. And in Belize, it was myself and Bradley and Ray Allen. Bradley's a compere on the show. we're working to 150 Gurkhas in the middle of the jungle with about 3 English officers at the back of the room. So the Gurkhas hardly speak any English. Brad goes on to dead silence because they don't understand what he's saying. He puts me on with my little box of magic tricks, crap magic. Here he is, Squeaky, you're going to love him. Well, you're not really going to hate him, but here he is, puts me on. I go on, dying on my arse bed. They're just sitting there, and they're all getting their cookery knives out, sharpening them. Right, they'll go, shh, shh, and they get into rhythm, almost like the whole audience all going, shh, because they've got the stone out sharpening their knives, and then they're all cutting their thumbs because apparently the religion is if it goes back with being unsheathed, it has to draw blood, so they're all cutting their thumbs. I'm like, oh, this isn't good. So I come off. Then Ray Allen goes off. Oh God, what's a ventriloquist going to do? They were mesmerised. Yeah. They'd never seen a ventriloquist before, right? And at the end of the show, they didn't laugh at him, but they were mesmerised by it. At the end of the show, every single person in that audience, every single one of those Gurkhas, queued up in the middle of the aisle to meet the little man. They didn't realise it was a ventriloquist. I don't know what they thought, whether it had been possessed or what, but they all shook hands with him afterwards, and they bowed graciously to him, and they went. The next night we went to a different base, and they said, everybody's out on manoeuvres, we've got no audience for you tonight. About an hour later they come up and said, we found an audience, and they flew in the same soldiers from the night before. I died on my arse with the same audience night after 2 nights running, and they all said, but they went to see the little man again, and that's what they came back in for.
How magic.
Yeah. So basically what I'm trying to say was, it never put me off dying on my arse.
Well, you'd had plenty of practice.
Yeah, it didn't bother me.
We jump forward a little bit because the 5 years, you paint it in quite a negative light, but obviously things were getting better. You were getting better. The momentum was picking up. Yeah. What was the game changer then?
The game changer then was I was getting more and more work in panto and summer season. Then in those days, in the late 80s, early 90s, the summer seasons were 16
So this is
weeks.
end of pier stuff and seaside theatres and the whole. So, which I missed that. I mean, I used to go to Chroma a little bit, and that. It's hard to explain to people what that was like in terms of entertainment, because you're very much from this tradition, even though you sort of fell into it in a way that anything can be turned into an act.
Absolutely, those special acts, all that sort of stuff. Yeah, you absolutely anything could do it. People blowing a funnel with a bit of a hose pipe on it. That was an act. Yeah, it was all of that stuff.
And did you feel at home now, Joe? Did you feel I've found my tribe, or I've found my? Apart from I'm not going back to the margarine factory, was there any more kind of existential joy in this?
I think I'm a chameleon. I fit into whatever group I'm in. I can feel, whatever I feel internally, I can always feel like I can fit in there still and be that person they want me to be.
Okay, yeah.
Which is a necessity in this day and age, I think, really, to have to be able to do that. But those days, 16 weeks summer season, then you'd have 10 weeks in panto and that sort of stuff. And I remember doing 6 nights a week in Blackpool at the Grand Theatre. And Sundays, you'd go to Skegness, do a Sunday show. Right. And on the Sundays, Ken Dodd, going back to Ken again, Ken would do the Sunday show at the Blackpool Theatre that I was working at. And I remember going to Skegness, doing the show there, packing my gear up, driving back to Blackpool and still catching the last hour of Ken, because Ken would do 5 or 6 hours.
You couldn't get him off
He'd start at 7, it'd be off at 2 or 3 in the morning. Incredible. So I remember getting back about 1 o'clock in the morning, still getting to the Grand Theatre and watching the last hour of Ken Dodd.
And did you feel by now that you were good at this? Did you have a bit of confidence?
I think what happens is, once again, it comes back to the psychology of this, right? I don't ask me how, more luck than judgment, being in the right place at the right time, and the producer saw a good night for me that I was on. I got booked for the Royal Variety Show in '93, which is the same one. Bradley, myself, Bradley, Shane Ritchie, and Brian Connery, all on that for us on that night. And Bradley and myself had known each other for a few years before that, meeting up on the circuit. And then what happens is the psychology behind it is, if the audience know you from Des O'Connor's show, they know you from the Royal Variety Show, their perception of you changes. So whatever I was doing, I might have been dying, with this material before the Royal Variety Show and Des O'Connor, then you do the Royal Variety Show and Des O'Connor, and then they laugh at it. Then it's what we were saying earlier. Their perception of what you're doing is changed then, because their perception of you has changed. So they laugh at it then, even though they don't know who you are. That's a little bit too weird for me. I'm not going to laugh at that. Oh, I saw him on Deslo doing something like this. Oh, he's funny, isn't he?
Oh, he's that guy. You'll love this.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And the psychology behind it always fascinates me.
It's expectation, but it's deeper than that, isn't it?
Yeah,
it goes a bit deeper than that.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but it is the King's New Clothes part of it.
So you had a good Royal Variety.
Yeah, the great Royal Variety show.
And does that push you into a new lane?
That pushes you into a bit more, and then you get more acceptance in the business, and more work and all that sort of stuff happens. Then you just ride the train, as it were, and you still keep gigging. But I just love going out. They're still doing it.
So now we're in about 96, aren't we?
Yeah.
When you get your own TV shows and things start kicking off nicely, and then you do big tours, Live and Squeaky.
Yeah.
Does it feel different when you're in front of them? I mean, is there a substantive difference between doing it in front of a crowd in Blackpool and doing it in front of a TV audience? Is that energy different?
Yeah, it's completely. Unless you're doing a live television show, which even as you know, you've done loads of live telly. You know what it's like. It's complete, because it's uncensored. Then what you're saying and what you're doing, it goes out there. And it does with a live audience, but if it's not been televised, it's completely different.
Yeah, because somehow subconsciously, they can say cut at any moment.
That's exactly it. Yeah, and they're going to do it again and all that sort of malarkey. Whereas with a live show, you're flying by the seat of your pants.
Yeah.
And I like that fear. And
more than anything.
Yeah, more than anything.
You're back almost at the New Faces audition, when it was a conversation which absolutely nobody could have written in advance.
Absolutely, yeah. So this is what I found now. As I've got older, I'm just talking to the audience more now. And I started doing it this year and last year, doing a Q&A. And sometimes, because as you know, I talk a lot, right? Sometimes I only get one question, and I can do an hour on that one question there, because I've got so much experience of crap that's happened in my life that I weave these stories into it all and go, well, that's what happened, and that led to that. And I find it, the psychology is amazing.
And what's the worst that can happen?
That is that. It really is, though. It's exactly it. Yeah, it is Dr. Pepper. Yeah. I
love it. When would you have relaxed? When would you have felt, if you'd ever have used this phrase, I've made it?
Oh, I never bothered about making it.
No, I never. Okay, I don't mean it in terms of status or box ticking.
Okay.
But just in terms of I'm where I want to be.
Where I want to be is, I think when I realised I didn't have to do a proper job.
And that was it?
Yeah, that was always been the main thing. I don't want to go and do a proper job for the rest of my life. I'd be quite happy at this level, doing this until I die. Do a Tommy Cooper on stage, have a massive heart attack, whatever happens.
So telly was just nice, but it was never like the master plan? Because some comics really would feel that they'd wasted their lives if they'd never been on telly.
Oh yeah, but once again, there's different levels of success on it depends what your gauge is for success as well. Do you gauge your success on having a Saturday night television show? Do you gauge it on paying your mortgage off? My only gauge is, for me, is I want to be as happy as I can possibly be in any one moment in time.
And you're very blessed, and this may go back to your childhood, in that you have a concept of enough.
Yeah.
Sometimes, you don't want it to end.
No.
But equally, you know what enough is. This is enough.
No, yeah, all I need is that. That's all I need is that to get by. And what I do need, and I didn't think I did need it, I really didn't think I did need it, was being able to perform. Didn't think I needed that until it was taken away from me for the pendo years, as you want to call it, whatever. Those 2 years, right, I found really hard mentally and physically in a way as well, not to be able to use that part of my personality. And because I lived on my own, right? I live on my own. And so to be able to sit there on my own, and my kids come and visit me and friends and all that sort of stuff, but to be locked away and have that part of my brain that wasn't showing off, if you want a better word.
It's not showing off, though, is it? It's almost like you're
expressing yourself then, part. And then I remember Lee Mead, Lee, right, the singer. Course, Lee phoned me up at the end of the second pandemic and said, second lockdown rather, and said, I'm doing a show at the London Palladium. It's all distance, but I want to have a comic show. I'm warming up. I'm filming it for my new show that I'm doing. Would you like to come and do the warm-up for me? So I can't afford to pay you. And he said, absolutely, yes, I'll be there. And then what happened was, I said yes, put the phone down. I went, oh my God, I've got to come to a show now. I've not done it for 2 years. What happens if that bloke isn't, because that part of my personality hadn't been used. What happens if he ain't there anymore and I have to do it, if you know what I mean by that?
Oh,
right?
wow,
because there is, we've all got
because you hadn't seen him for 2 years.
I hadn't seen him, I hadn't need him for 2 years. What happens if he don't turn up and it's me, that bloke, that kid that sat outside the curtain with my mum, that one there that was quiet at the margarine factory at the Smithfield's Meat Market. What happens if it's on my shoulders? And so I was petrified. I was really, it was like I'd never been on stage ever.
Wow.
And then I introduced myself because they didn't know I was on. I went, ladies, please, Joe Pasquale, and they all cheered. And when I went, and literally the second the light came on, I got to the microphone, he took over and was like, oh, this is so weird, he's there. And I didn't look for him. He just came out and went, oh, here, I'm here. And he went and did it. I went, oh, he's still in there. It was like riding a bike. And then it was when I realised I need this still. I still need to do this.
It's a relief.
Yeah, it was a relief.
As much as euphoric.
It's a very weird thing, isn't it?
It isn't. It isn't. I mean, the way you tell it, I simultaneously makes absolutely perfect sense, and the hairs on the back of my neck stand up.
Oh, you must have parts of your
not like that.
Part.
No, I mean not like that. Not in the sense of I don't. I mean, I come back off my holiday and I think, how do I do this weird job? What if the light comes on the microphone and I've got no opinions? But it's different, isn't it, when you're so exposed on a stage and And you reach a level of understanding of what you've done that you probably wouldn't have got without the 2-year hiatus.
No, not at all. No, and because of that 2 years, I also. My love for it has not just come back. I mean, it's really come back tenfold now.
Which brings us to the new normal, 40 Years of Cack, which is kicking off this month, isn't it?
Yeah, I've been doing it for the past...
but the new tour, the new
leg of it. A new leg of it, yeah.
I mean, we'll get on to what's in that shortly. We're running out of time. Because you've done...
I'm so sorry.
You did... I know, I could listen to you all day, you know that. The acting you've done... as well.
Yeah.
I mean, you've had also, because people will know you, some viewers will know you, younger people from I'm a Celebrity. They're you know.
Yeah, that was 20 years ago now, though.
Yeah, no, I know. Well, maybe not even that much younger. It feels like more recently, doesn't it?
Does,
but you're one of those people that has had a sort of constant presence in the public perception, even if you weren't necessarily on telly every Saturday. But you've been able to pick and choose things.
Yeah.
So what happens when, I mean, you don't say yes to absolutely everything.
No.
But what criteria do you decide, I'm going to have a crack at playing Guildenstern in Rosencrantz and Guildenstern? I'm going to do the producers with Russ Abbott, who also course from that tradition of...
Yeah, I think once again I like to push myself. I like to push on something that I don't think I can do. If I can't do that, then I want to try and... I don't like to be told you can't do that, you're not an actor. And when I did a play, once again Brad got me into this. I did a play for Ray Cooney a few years ago with Bradley, and he said, look, I'm doing this play with Ray and he wants 2 comics, and he got a friend of ours called Richard Gauntlet and myself. I said, does he know who I am? He went, no. He said, but I've told him that you're a good actor, you can do this. So I said, yeah, all right, fine. Anyway, get to the first read through with Brad sitting there, and I could see Ray Cooney looking at me, as you know, is an extremely brilliant, prolific playwright. And Ray's looking at me all the time. And then he went over to Brad at lunchtime. He went, is he like that all the time? And he went, oh yeah, that's Squeaky, that's him all the time. So I've always maintained that I always find the best actors are the people that always play themselves. You look at Robert De Niro, you look at Al Pacino, you look at all these big, James Gandolfini from the Sopranos, all these, whenever you see these people in these roles, George Clooney is always George Clooney. Matt Damon is always Matt Damon. Now I'm not saying I'm a George Clooney or a Matt Damon.
You're a combination of both.
Yeah, of course I am. Of course I'm like 5 o'clock George Clooney. But I always think the best way of doing it is, I was told about acting is walking into a room, planting your feet and telling the truth. Wow. And that's the only rule that I can have, because I'm not classically trained, not trained in acting at all. But when I get a job, I try and tell the truth on it.
Well, that's true in everything you do, isn't it? I mean, even when you're being...
Yeah, but being the comic, I've still been me, being that part of my personality.
But through... What's the difference in terms of satisfaction? Because it must feel very different. What does the applause feel like at the end of the play?
No, the applause is the applause. I don't like doing straight stuff so much, because I do like to hear people laughing.
Like the constant... Yeah. Or encouragement almost.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to do a dark play. I'd like to be a baddie in something, but no, it means a director has really got some balls to say he could play a baddie.
I could see you playing an East End gangster.
Oh yeah, I could do that. Yeah,
no worries.
Oh yeah.
So what can people expect? People who haven't seen the new novel, 40 Years of Cack.
Basically, it's a child in a man's body mucking about. But what I really love about it, as I said before, is I do a Q&A now. And I don't set it up. I don't have bits of paper. We write down something. That way you can, you actually filter what's coming through then, and you might have a gag about it or a routine about that. I don't do that. It's literally proper old school. Put your hand. I didn't think anybody would actually have a question for me, right? And it's taken up nearly the whole second half of the show now. But the amount of hands that go up, and everybody's got a question. You don't know what's coming, and you have to make it interesting. The answer.
The show on 2 consecutive nights could be, the second half at least, could be completely different.
Yeah.
What's in the first half?
First half is a friend of mine, Comic-Con called Lee Carroll, does about 20 minutes. I do about 25 minutes in the first half of stand-up stuff, mucking about, magic, getting people up on the audience and see what happens. Once again, that's different every night as well, because I use the audience a lot. And then the second half, you never know what's coming out, really.
And what, I think kind of, there must be some questions that come up more often than others.
Yeah, there are. People like to ask you about the Royal Variety Show, what was the Queen like? Okay. And sometimes I meet a lot of ex-service people that I'd worked 20 or 30 years ago.
Oh,
and
wow.
so, and then it goes on to different stories about being in Iraq and what happened in those, and Belize and the Falkland and
So
all
it's
that
all
sort of
there.
stuff.
So
yeah.
the one thing you're never going to do is run out of material. The
No.
days of you having a 5-minute act in a 45-minute slot
No,
are a long way in
I
the
can
rear
just
view.
talk
They're a
about
long way
I
behind
can just
you.
talk about all those things that happened, dancing, and people want to know, as you just said, like people want to know about the high profile stuff, like what would Torval and Dean like on tour, what was Jungle like, and was Paul Barrel like that really, and all the things that came up with it all,
We're done pretty much. I mean the full details are. What's your website? Is it?
JoePasquale.com.
That's easy to remember, and it's a proper tour. Do you get knackered? Do you get more tired now than you
Yeah,
used
do you
to
know,
do?
I don't get tired when I'm gigging. I actually get tired in the car driving back to the next one. That's the crux of it. So, which is what's great about your podcast. That's when I listen to the podcast.
Oh, that's nice to keep you company. Oh, that's nice
it does.
to know.
Yeah, I don't listen to music in the car anymore because I find it makes me tired. But you get really, because you're very entertaining yourself as well, and because you don't just sit there either. You interject a lot, and you've got your own
I haven't done
stories.
much interjecting today.
No, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
No, I'm joking. And then what? Do you know? Because this is running till Christmas, pretty much till November.
I'm doing Panto in Wimbledon with Alexandra.
So you're as busy as you've ever been.
Yeah, and then I'm back on the road next year with Bradley, Shane, and Brian, because we did a show at the Palladium this year.
Of course.
And Bradley seems to have put the moniker on it of the Pratt Pack, he likes to call it. So there's Bradley Walsh, Shane Ritchie, myself, and Brian Conley for the four of us for a little tour next year.
That's so exciting. And for a man who has never had formal ambition or a kind of sense of something specific that you want to tick off, is there anything that you mentioned maybe playing a baddie, but is there anything more?
Nothing in the business I go, I really want to do that, I really want to do this. No, I'm not bothered. I've done Mastermind 4 times, and each time I've got so close, came second about 3 times, but I'd like to win Mastermind but each time
surely it gets less likely because you're going now on your 5th specialist
I know
subject.
It is, yeah, I know.
If you don't smash it the first time, you're doomed, aren't you?
No, but I've always been great on a specialist subject, fantastic. It's when you get to the general knowledge, and I remember John Humphreys always said to us, he went, look, beforehand, he said, if it's a question you don't know, he said, just guess, because chances are you could get it. And he said, the more passes you get, that adds up at the end as well. And I remember I did vampire movies of the 20th century. That's what I did, or 21st century, from present to present day. And I got 19 out of 19 for whatever it was, 13 out of 13 for my specialist. I get to general knowledge, and then he says to me, what is the Christian name of the current Pope? And I just went, I don't know, I went Kevin. And he laughed for about 30 seconds, went, John, come on, you're wasting time here. And I was in pole position. I went last because he laughed for about 30 seconds.
You just want to carry on for as long as you can, don't you?
Yeah, I do.
Well, I hope you do too.
Yeah, I think life's hard enough as it is, and this is my therapy, really.
Joe Pasquale, thank you.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed that.